sort of, I let things sort of happen naturally, and I don't like to force things. And this wasn't forced; it happened, sort of naturally. It was the right time. So I don't feel like I feel like it's going to be what it's going to be, and it's time to find out.
Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes, and I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Matt Dorsey here with me. Now, I was explaining to him before we got started, I just got familiar with his music, and it blew me away. I didn't know what to expect. I looked over your press release, and I got to read all your influences, and I can definitely tell there's some bits and pieces of each one that I read on there that's in the music. And
that's great to hear.
But and I was also telling him that I played his music for my wife, and she just fell in love with his voice right away. So don't let him kid you, folks. He's got a great voice. Some great tunes, especially if you like the more progressive sound, which I mean, Rush, Triumph, Frank Zappa, The Police. I mean, you name it. I love prog rock. So, anyways, before we get everything kicked off, Matt, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
I am a California resident, although I was born in the Northeast. I grew up just north of Boston, Massachusetts, and decided I hated the winters. They were just too much. So when it was time for college, I went to Dallas, Texas, went to the University of Dallas, studied philosophy for 4 years, and went back to Boston, started messing around with music again. I mean, I was always writing music, especially in college, rather than studying, writing songs, recording, playing with my recording equipment, pissing off my neighbors because I would always play it too loud.
Gotcha.
Then I went home and I started, I was selling cars for a while, and it just sort of, not that it was a terrible job. It was pretty cool. I was selling Saturns where they don't do the haggling and hassling. It was a pretty straightforward gig. Cool people to work with, but I just wasn't really satisfied. And I asked a friend of mine who was moving up in the music industry in New York City. This guy named Tommy DeBenedictis, who's in radio promotion now. He's killing it. He's doing great. Anyway, I asked him at the time, do you know anybody who needs a bass player? Just like frustrated and just kind of throwing a Hail Mary. Do you know anybody? And he goes, you know what? I think I do know somebody. And a week later, I got a call from none other than Beth Hart. You familiar with her?
Name is familiar, but I'm not going to lie, I can't make it click at the moment.
Well, if you get a chance, give her a listen. Her voice is it's extraordinary. I mean, she's a genuine, true artist, and she's just dripping with talent. She's been doing a lot of work with Joe Bonamassa, that's a blues guy lately. But she's got her own career. She's amazing, incredible songwriter. So I got that gig, and that was out here in Los Angeles. So I flew out for the audition. I got the gig, and I literally never went back. I had to call my roommates back in Boston and say, okay, you can sell my stuff or give it to my brothers or something like that. But I just never went back. Even though that gig didn't last longer than I think 6 months, I was like, I'm not going home. I'm staying out here. I love California. And as soon as I got off the plane, I was like, this is home. The weather's just incredible out here. I mentioned those winters back in Boston. Yeah, the comparison is it's stark. And so I just felt really, really happy here. And so I stuck it out, joined a ton of bands for the next 10 years. Played all the clubs in LA. Was in a stoner rock band called Driven. I just literally played with so many bands. I actually even played with Hannah Montana.
Oh wow.
Believe it or not, yeah, I had this gig at doing some video editing in the CNN building, and right next to our office was a casting office, and I saw all these musicians going in there one day, and I was like, "What's going on in there?" And some guy said, "Yeah, it's Disney. They got some Disney thing going on in there." So I just poked my head and he said, "Hey, I'm a musician. Can I get in on this? Can I do an audition?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, come on." So I just jumped around like an idiot on a keyboard, pretending I was playing, and I ended up getting the gig, and was like Hannah Montana's bass player for her 3 live performances, which was a lot of fun. It was my first time in London. I think the second show was in London, so it was awesome. I mean, a little goofy, but I had a blast.
Hey, why not?
Started working with, I got word that Simon Collins, Phil's son, was putting together a band for his 3rd solo album. And so I called that same guy in New York. I said, "Hey man, do you have an in with Simon Collins?" And he made it happen. He got me on an audition, and I flew up to Vancouver and got the gig, originally as his keyboardist and kind of second guitarist, background vocalist. But I always wanted to play bass. It's just more fun to play bass live, jumping around like a monkey. So I ended up being the bass player. Once that tour ended, Simon wanted to start a new band. He had this guy named Dave Kerzner that he had done some work with, and then Kelly Nordstrom, who was the guitarist for the Simon Collins project. It was You Catastrophe. That was the name of the album that we were supporting at the time. So the 4 of us became Sound of Contact, and we recorded Dimension On, which did pretty well. Everyone in the prog world seemed to like it and receive it well. We got awards and stuff, and toured a bunch, but we just couldn't manage to get a second album together. We just kept running into complications and hurdles and delays and whatnot. The long and the short of it is just it wasn't meant to be, so we disbanded. And then I got a gig with most recently I got a gig with Prog-Rock, which is a progressive rock cover band. And then they go out and it's kind of a super group of incredible players. Jonathan Wilber put it together. He's a great drummer in the last 3 decades. Mike Keneally, unstoppable guitarist, super genius. Michael Sadler, glorious vocalist. You know him as the singer from Saga. And Ryu Akamoto, keyboardist extraordinaire, and an absolute nut job.
Wow.
It's so fun.
I just had Mike on the show.
Mike Keneally or Mike Sadler?
Mike Keneally.
Oh yeah. Isn't he
awesome guy, man.
You can't find a more awesome guy. Like, he checks all the boxes. He's just humble, he's kind, he's smart, he's funny, super talented, like beyond talented. Just gets it. That's just a dude all around.
Yeah.
So that went for I was in that band for 3 years before we ended up touring, because COVID delayed everything. We finally got out on the road back in April last year and did our first tour. And it was going great. I had a blast. We made incredible memories that I'll take to the grave with me. But by the end of it, I had rubbed somebody the wrong way enough that I was asked to leave. I didn't realize I was doing it, but apparently I was, too much for this individual to tolerate. He gave me no indication that there was a problem. Just at the end, it was like, "Hey, man, you're out." Yes. I was bummed, man, because that was the coolest gig. Those shows were amazing. Crowds were amazing. Not huge. I mean, this was our first tour, and had a lot of growth ahead of us. But the reaction of those crowds to those songs that we were doing, just classic progressive rock songs, I'd never received anything like that in terms of an audience response. It was glorious. It was awesome. Every night the band would just be looking at each other. Wow, holy cow, are we really doing this? It was awesome. It was just awesome. People really loved these songs and they really appreciated the way that we did it. So that was awesome. it gave me some confidence too as a singer, as a vocalist, because I did have one song where I sang Salisbury Hill. And so I was let go, and that really bummed me out. So what happened next was, project was scheduled to play Prog-Rock back in November up in Rahway, New Jersey, or back in October. But at the last minute, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, and I wasn't in the band at the time, they had to cancel. Like, pretty close to the show date, and the promoters were kind of befuddled and, you know, I don't want to say too much, but not happy. And I think within an hour they called me and were like, what the fuck? And I was like, I don't know, I'm not in this band anymore. But they asked me to go. I was like, well, I guess I could play some of my stuff. And, you know, I've been planning on releasing an album for like 30 years, right? It's been a ridiculously long period of time, and everything, I let everything get in the way, right? But here I am with an opportunity to go and play my songs in front of a crowd of like-minded individuals. Let's just do it, man. So I said yes. Immediately started rehearsing my songs like twice a day, and put together a set of my stuff that I think went over pretty well. You know, not mind-blowing, but I got a really good response. And during that weekend, I reconnected with a gal named Rita K. Drew, who ended up, you know, she's been encouraging me to get said album done for a few years now. And so we rekindled our relationship, and she decided that she would help me push this album over the finish line and help me, you know, with all the costs associated with releasing a record. And a lot of the paperwork and, you know, busy work as well, which I'm not so good at, but she is, thankfully. So because I got kicked out of Project, I guess it's this, you know, the moral of the story is I now have an album out, and I was just asked to open up for Marillion, none of which would have happened had I not got kicked out of the Project.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how it's amazing how one thing can lead to another. Just when you think you're defeated, something good comes out of it. But how do you keep encouraged when, you know, it seems like one thing after another happens where it seems like it's not going to happen?
You write a song about it. I say that kind of as a joke, but part of one of the songs on the album is a song called "Waiting for the Fall," which is basically that. It's sort of our a disposition towards this perpetual failure. You know, no matter how hopeful I get for this, you know, the future I've always wanted, something always just fucking trips me up. You know, I mean, I end the song with, you know, I get off the ground, I dust off and try again. You know, it's not all negative. But it's, you know, that's the music business. It will kick you in the gut every single time.
Yeah.
Every time. And you just have to, you know, either it's too much and you give up, or you just learn to live with those disappointments, because they are many and oftentimes severe. So it's a challenge to stay focused and positive. But when you do, luckily, sometimes really good things happen.
Yeah.
In the middle of riding a pretty big wave, and you know, life is a series of waves. That's all I use.
Yeah, I can imagine at times it can really mess with you mentally. You just up and decided to move all the way on the other side of the country. That had to have been scary.
It was a little, you know, a bit of a culture shock, but like I said, I felt at home as soon as I got off the plane. You know, I don't know, it's something about Southern California. Obviously, the weather, the people, the pace. I just really love it. So many artists out here, so many musicians, so many creative people.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you were up in Dallas, you could have headed south and come right down here to Austin. I mean, it's the music capital of Texas.
You know, Austin is my favorite place in Texas. I liked Dallas, but Boston was that's the place to be.
And you put out your album. I mean, in there that fear of rejection. I mean, the music is awesome, but I mean, in the back of your head, you got to be thinking, what if this fails? I mean, would you have walked away or just kept trying?
That's a good question. I'm still sort of in the middle of testing that because it hasn't been released yet. You've heard it because you are among those who review, so you got an early copy, but it's not released until the 7th of April.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But I mean, you played it live, right?
I did play some of it, yeah, live, and like I said, the response was good, and gave me some encouragement to finish the project. I mean, as I was playing the show, as I was prepping for the show, I wasn't really thinking so much about the album. That sort of came about because of the show and conversations after it. But yeah, I did play a number of the songs. I think 5 of the songs that are on the album I played that night. So it gave me some confidence. But to your point, fear of rejection, fear of failure is probably the number one reason it's taken me decades to get an album out. I'm just like a lot of artists, man. I'm just utterly insecure about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Who I am in the world, all that kind of stuff. Is my art good enough to compete in this challenging world of so many musicians that are so much better than me? But I don't know. It's sort of, I let things sort of happen naturally, and I don't like to force things. And this wasn't forced; it happened, sort of naturally. It was the right time. So I don't feel like, I feel like it's going to be what it's going to be, and it's time to find out. To answer your question, is it going to make me quit if this album fails? Imagine if Michael Stipe decided he wasn't a good enough singer.
Yeah.
He wasn't, Elvis, and we wouldn't have REM. I mean, there's a billion examples of artists that we love who probably don't feel like they measure up to their peers, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't really factor in. The fact that you think other people are better, it shouldn't factor in because there's an audience for your creativity.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard Steve Vai doing an interview the other day, and he talked about, don't worry if you're not doing it like everybody else, or if you don't sound like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Just do it for you, do it to the best that of your ability, and it'll work out. Well, I'm already, close to my mid-50s, and I think that's too late for me.
Well, I'm in my mid-50s. I'm just releasing my first record. So.
Wow, man. I would have never guessed, honestly.
Yeah. I born in 69.
Ah, well, see, you're right there with me. You enjoyed the $6 Million Man as much as I did then, right?
I sure did.
Saturday morning cartoons.
For sure.
My dreams have changed. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and then I started doing the podcasting and realized I really love doing it. And so this has kind of been more of my focus and what I'm putting my energy in. And who knows? I mean, maybe I'll take off. Maybe I'll be the next Joe Rogan. Who knows? But I'm gonna, and I don't do my show like everybody else does. I mean, you hear the same million questions over and over and over again, and I think, God, there's got to be more to it than asking, what's your favorite guitar? Or what were you thinking when you wrote this song? I mean, how many times can you say the same thing over and over again?
Yeah, well, no, I appreciate that for sure. It's going to be different.
Yeah. What makes you tick? What do you do to ground yourself? For me, I like going to the river and putting my feet in the water, and that helps me to kind of center myself from all the chaos that's gone on during the week. I mean, what do you do?
It's funny. I'm in Southern California and I'm surrounded with, trails and oceans and all that stuff, and I just don't take advantage of it nearly enough. I don't put my feet in the stream. I don't walk around in the grass barefoot nearly as much as I should. But to answer your question, what do I do? I mean, I don't want to sound like a one-trick pony, but music is my go-to activity for everything that I love.
When it comes to art, I've got to be more precise, or I will draw the same picture 100 times before I even close to being satisfied with it.
Really? Wow.
And even then, I still hate it. I hate everything that I do.
Throw it away.
Yep. My wife's like, "Why'd you throw that away?" I'm sorry. It just, to me, it sucked.
Yeah, I grew up a kind of a doodler as well. Kind of known as being artistic that way. But man, if I drew something I didn't like, I would destroy that shit before anyone could see it.
Yep, that's me. That is me. If I had a fireplace, I'd throw it in there.
Yep.
Do you get the feeling that way sometimes when you write music?
I do, but I do have a sort of a comfortable existence with it because I'm sitting here in my studio, and I've got it's isolated in here, sound isolation. No one can hear what I'm doing. I can't hear anything out there. So I feel like I'm in a safe place to make as many awful sounding mistakes as I need to navigate to the finer bits. And no one ever has to hear that stuff. Just hear what I care to release, which is about 0.001% of it.
Yeah. I don't mean for this to sound like I'm talking about myself, but I have to kind of isolate myself when I'm doing the shows, because later on I can go in and I can edit whatever I don't like and make it sound better. But even with my wife's office being right next to mine, I know she could hear me if she's in there. And I don't even want to speak up when she's in there. I don't want her to hear my mistakes.
I'm the same way, man. But I was in my 20s and my parents got me a violin for Christmas, not like a super expensive one, just something to get started because, I was playing guitar, bass, keyboards, drums, and all this stuff. And they're like, "Oh, let's add this to it." And I was thrilled to get it. But man, it sounds awful when you don't know how to play it. And for that reason, I just didn't want to subject anybody to that horrible sound. I just never really took to it. I wish I had just sort of pushed through that anxiety, because man, wouldn't it be great to know how to play violin? As it is, it just sits on my wall with 2 strings.
Well, I guess a reminder of, hey, I stuck it out and look what I do now, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, I could do it now that I've got the studio. That could learn without offending anybody. So maybe I'll take it up again.
And do you learn so many different instruments and keep that in your brain? I mean, I couldn't even master my Squire bass here.
My advice has always been that kind of contrary to what most people say. I don't think you should practice to the point where it becomes frustrating, because that frustration is what kills potential musicians. You should play it when it's fun. When it's not fun, you put it down, and at some point that desire to pick it up again will arise, and that's when you play some more. And you keep doing that, and if you're not in a hurry, which I was never in a hurry, over time you're just going to get better at it. And I was lucky that my dad played piano, so there was a piano in the house. My older brother was a drummer, so there was a drum kit in the house. My younger brother got a guitar for Christmas one year when I was 14, and my birthday's in January. So when I turned 15, I was like, "Dad, all we need is a bass." And You got a whole band. So he bought me a bass and an amp for my 15th birthday, and I started playing Police records. I learned all the Police bass lines. If you want to learn some killer bass lines that aren't super hard, but are juicy enough, because Sting, he's a great bass player because he uses all the notes of the scale. It's just not all root note stuff, but it's not super fast and flashy that you can't sort of figure it out. So I recommend, the Police is a great way to learn the bass. But my younger brother didn't take to the guitar, so I sort of adopted that. My older brother was okay with me playing his drums. He didn't care. And my dad playing piano every single night when we all went to bed. Like every single night, you would hear my dad playing jazz standards on the piano.
Wow.
So that, ingrained in me. And then, when I got home from school, I just started messing around with the piano too. So I just had the instruments around me, and call it a lack of desire to do anything else. I just ended up spending all of my time after school playing the records, writing stuff. I started writing pretty early too. Like as soon as I started messing around with the guitar, I was just trying to work out my own ideas. The bass is where I played to albums. I played to Police albums and Rush albums and Yes albums and Genesis and that kind of stuff. But I never really tried to learn too many songs on guitar. I just started to, at that point, just started to write stuff.
When it comes to the music itself, I mean, let's face it, there's millions of songs out there. And like I told you before, I mean, I could hear the influences in the songs without it sounding like a particular song. How do you be different? How do you write down different lyrics and not hear the same old, God, how many times you heard day and pray and love and all those words rhymed over and over and over again?
I don't know how original I am. I'd imagine every lyric I've ever written was already written by somebody else somewhere else. I don't think I'm too original where that's concerned. But I don't really try to be different. I don't really try to be anything. I just, I'll sit down with no idea at all, pick up a guitar or sit at the piano, and literally just kind of throw my hands down and make mistakes until something sounds cool. And I'm like, okay, I like that. And then you start to develop that idea, and you get a sense of where it might go, and you try it. No, you try it. Oh, okay, I like where that goes. And it's really just trial and error for the most part. And before you know it, you've got, a couple of minutes worth of riffs and ideas that flow well together. And as you're doing that, the melodies just sort of come. They come naturally, messing around with this chord progression, and you start humming a melody, right? It just sort of grows out of that. And lyrics are, I'm not much of a poet, so it's usually the last thing that I do. So I'll have an idea, I'll record the piano or the guitar, maybe add some drums, just so it's got some rhythm to it. And then those melodies that are, nonsense syllables, blah be dee ba da ba dee be ba, they slowly become words. It's usually one of those nonsense syllables sounds like a word. And, oh, okay, so that's what this song is about. And you just follow it that way. I never really sit down to do anything specific. It just sort of happens when we enter.
Well, at one point in my life, I felt like I wanted to be a lyricist, and then I would sit down and try to write out what I thought sounded cool. And before I knew it, it sounded almost like I was doing, your typical old Beatles song or something. I don't know. I don't know how you get to be different.
The Beatles. You're gonna sound like anybody. Sound like the Beatles.
Well, I mean, come on, the lyrics, the old tunes. I'm not talking about, your Sergeant Pepper's or Rubber Soul kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm talking like the early days. I want to hold your hand. I mean,
yeah.
come on.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I get your point. Kind of simplistic, but that said, I wouldn't change a thing about their catalog. Music is just,
Oh, me either.
it's just,
I don't know. I don't know how you can't like the Beatles,
I don't know either.
but ask my mother. She would
Well,
pick John Denver over the Beatles any day, and I'm like, really?
well, nothing against John Denver. I love that guy.
No, the guy can write.
Such a great voice, such a great sensibility. The songs just make you feel good, but he's not the Beatles.
He's not the Beatles. That's
Now
my whole
imagine if
point.
John Denver decided not to pursue music because he's not the Beatles. And who would your mom listen to?
Um, John Williams.
She likes the Johns.
Yeah,
John Williams is extraordinary.
or maybe like my dad and listen to Bobby Vinton. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Bobby Vinton. It's a name I've heard so many times, but I don't know if I can place any of the songs.
Blue Velvet.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm an ignorant fuck. Sorry.
Yeah, I was tortured with that 8-track when I was growing up. So I'm sorry. That would be one person I think we could probably have done without, but most of the people that listen to this are probably not going to know who Bobby Vinton is.
Right.
Oh man, I admire anyone that could sit down and put down the tracks that you put down. You know,
Yeah,
and
I
I,
hope the next album comes out a little bit quicker than this one. I mean, I've got a bunch of ideas that are brewing, and I'm eager to sort of.
I mean, you don't want to rush it.
I don't, but I also don't want to take 3 decades like this one.
This is true. This is true. Well, I would say that if I listened to something that Billy would have sent me and I wouldn't have liked it, then I would have made an excuse why I couldn't do the interview.
Oh yeah.
Because I just can't be honest with somebody and go, oh man, your stuff's great. And back of my head, I'm like, God, that was crappy.
Oh, I mean, you don't have to apologize for having integrity.
You know, I think people can see through that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I take the compliment that you enjoyed my album enough to do the interview.
The bands you listed off, I'm like, Rush, and all the others. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. No,
Rush, Genesis, Pink Floyd, yes. XTC, Steely Dan.
yeah, there was one tune. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but there was one tune. I was like, man, this could be a Steely Dan song.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. I can't remember all the names, but
That's
yeah.
nice to hear. I have an idea of what song you're talking about. It's a wonderful compliment. I can't say enough about that band. My dad got me into them. Me and my brothers and my sister.
Really.
Dad loved. They're great.
I think our generation really appreciated that kind of music. I mean, we were little kids during the 70s, but that music was always on the radio.
Right.
And, when we got into junior high and high school, then you got to see more of the new wave and heavy metal and all that, and great music. But I'm sorry, the 70s were, to me, the best era for music.
Well, the 80s came and the visual imagery became a much stronger component of the artistic expression, and naturally that left the songwriting itself maybe suffering a little bit. The videos and everything else, it's just all flash and trying to gain attention. Obviously,
Yeah.
the songs have to be good, but it wasn't the primary focus anymore. It's like, let's just write some hit that we can make $1 billion off. Act like an idiot in front of the camera and get it on MTV.
Yeah. Well, look, the heavy metal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You were coming off of the more heavier stuff of the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and early 80s metal was it just blew you away. And then the hair metal started out,
Right.
and I did love a lot of those hair metal bands, but then all of a sudden it got to be a corporate formula.
Yeah.
Every album had to have a ballad on it, and
Right.
you had to have that party theme song on there, and it lost something, man. I know that's why it died out. I mean, yeah, grunge came in there in the early 90s, but it died out because it got to be the same old crap over and over again.
Yeah. I like that scene, Soundgarden. Alice in Chains.
Yeah, Pearl Jam.
Nirvana. That was a nice movement.
Yeah,
Really good stuff.
but oh man, the metal stuff of the 90s, okay, but I've noticed the heavy metal now is starting to pick up again. Just not going to have that same music we had back in the 70s, man.
No.
I mean, you guys are, I hope there's a resurgent, because a lot of the guys that Billy sends me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dang, I could see myself back in my room as a teenager, just chilling out, listening to this stuff.
Right.
So I hope y'all bring it back. Please do.
Doing my best.
It's on your shoulders, man.
I hear you. The listening experience is different these days. I mean, we used to listen to whole albums and open up the album cover and go through the liner notes and everything else. But, the attention span isn't what it used to be, for all kinds of reasons. The listening experience is usually a lot shorter,
Well,
as intimate as it once was between listener and artist.
yeah. Well, one of the things that it seems to come up all the time when I do an interview is how there's just not that feeling to it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
A guy can get on his computer, you got every instrument you can imagine, you can pull up in a program and make the music on your computer, where you don't have the bands playing it live in the studio anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, you've got some great singers. Not exactly my kind of music, but got some great singers, but they don't have a band they're going in there playing alongside.
Yeah. It's different.
So, but I mean, you got to play most of your instruments.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's kind of like a band situation, but I'm the band. And I'm not using all samples and stuff like that. It's real tracks, but it's mostly me.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm a loner.
You're,
Can't
you're
get anyone to play with me. Although,
does
that said, I do have Marco Minnemann, Jonathan Mover, two amazing drummers on this album, and then Dave Kerzner is provides a great keyboard solo. So I wasn't entirely alone.
doesn't play play well with others.
Yeah, my report cards.
Uh, oh, I don't know, man. To me, I could tell the feeling in the album. You put a lot into it, and I really appreciate the music.
That means a lot. Thank you very much.
So I expect free tickets when you come to Austin, okay?
Absolutely. Sure.
And we'll go meet up at Whataburger.
Yeah, share a burger. I think that's a great idea. Sure. Let's do it.
Now, another thing that I've asked a few of the guys, because whenever I was in high school, the thing to do was, especially for us headbangers, is that we would, part of it was you grow your hair out long, and part of it was you went out and you partied, you drank, and you did a bunch of drugs, and you just partied all the time. What keeps you from falling into that kind of thing?
Well, a couple of things. First, full disclosure, I am not straight edge. I smoke, a good amount of weed. And I'll have a beer or two from time to time. But that's about it. My dad gave me some really, really good advice when I was a teenager. He took me and my brothers and took us aside and he said, listen, kids, you're going to be at parties and there's going to be this stuff called cocaine. Do yourself a favor, never try it. Because if you do, for the rest of your life, you're going to crave it. It's that powerful.
Yep.
It's that good. So do yourself a favor and don't introduce that to yourself. And that really stuck with me, and I never tried it. And the other thing that happened was I was at a party, back around the same time. It's a house party, and the guy who was throwing the party had a friend who had just a tiny bit of coke, right? And they shared it between the two of them, just a little bit, right? And this guy went from, hey, maybe we should get some coke, before he did that, half a line, to, dude, you're gonna get some more. Go get some more. Like he just became a completely different human being from just one half of a line. It just changed his personality, and it scared the fuck out of me. I was like, all right, I've seen enough. Never in my life will I ever do that stuff. And so I've been joking my whole life. There's two things I'll never do: cocaine and karaoke.
Damn, I've done both.
Yeah, sure. And I have actually done karaoke since, but I'll never do coke.
Yeah.
So marijuana, I love this stuff. And if you're lucky, it doesn't get beyond that. For me, it's all I'll ever need. That said, it can become a problem too if you smoke too much. You smoke every day. I've been, there have been moments in my life where I didn't smoke too much and I lost all, motivation. It's like if you do the right amount, it can actually motivate you and help you, creatively. But if you're always fucking, baked, it's just like,
Yeah.
not good, not good. So you have to have balance with everything. Yeah, so I mean, the booze has never been a real problem either. Like I can only have a few drinks and then my body's like, all right, dude, that's enough. Like I don't remember the last time I was drunk. My wife's never seen me drunk.
Yeah, that's the problem. I can't remember the last time I was drunk either. Can't remember anything that night.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
Well, for me, it got to be a full-blown habit and addiction, and almost lost my family over it. I mean, it ruined my first marriage.
When you say you're talking about booze or coke or what?
Talking about all of it.
Partying in general.
Yeah. Alcohol. I mean, when I was in high school in my early 20s, it was alcohol and drugs. And then after I got married, it just kind of went down to the alcohol. But then I got right back into the drugs again. And before I knew it, 8 ball wouldn't last a night. And by the time I turned 36, I had a heart attack.
Jesus. Really?
And oh yeah. And it screwed up my relationship with my kids. I mean, I have a relationship with them now, but I can tell there's still a little bit of resentment there.
Yeah. Oh, sounds like you're on the mend where that's concerned, at least.
Yeah. Knock on wood. Stay that way.
I know, man.
Yeah, I see too many musicians. They get in and they either they end up dying or their career's over.
Yeah, I've played with enough artists who have really, well, let's say, complicated issues, and it's hard to watch. It's hard to work with them. It's heartbreaking. Um, you know, I consider myself lucky that I'm just, I'm not of the physiology that stuff, has its power over me. It's not, I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. I'm just saying I'm thankfully composed physiologically in a way that's, I don't get swept away like some people do. I'm not blaming anybody, and I'm not saying I'm better than anyone. I'm just saying I'm lucky. You know what I mean? Just like weed.
Yeah, I don't even do that anymore.
Well, good, man. So you straight edge now?
I'm straight edge. Yep.
Good for you, dude. Good for you.
I know me. If I got into the drinking again, I'd lose everything I got now.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reasons why I don't hang around a lot of my old friends is because they still do drugs.
Yep.
And I know if you put Coke in front of me right now, it would take every fiber in my body not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt I'd say no.
Yeah.
So I got to stay away from it.
You know that about yourself, and you know how to protect yourself from those situations. Because isn't life so much better?
Oh, man.
You're all messed up.
Yeah.
Look at you. You're healthy. I think, relatively speaking, with your conditions, you seem happy. You're productive. You're helping the community with your podcasts. Yeah.
And I enjoy my spending time with my grandkids. And I know if I was doing drugs, my kids would not let me around my grandkids.
How many grandkids you got?
Got three boys.
How old are they?
The youngest one is 3, and the middle one is 7, and the oldest one's 12.
Are they all the children of the same person?
No, the 2 older boys are with my oldest daughter, and even though she's my second wife's daughter, she's still I call her my bonus daughter. And she lives here with us, and she's got the 3-year-old. And I love it. I love being pawpaw.
I bet. That's amazing.
Yeah, I have to say it is a great thing.
Sure.
So, do you have a particular theme for your next album coming out?
Oh no, I haven't thought that far in advance. Like I said before, I don't usually think things in advance. They just sort of happen organically. I'd imagine at some point, by the 5th or 6th song that I've got sort of underway for the next album, a concept may emerge. But I'm not so, unlike a lot of progressive rock artists, I'm not that concerned about having a cohesive theme for my album. I'd love to make a concept album, but I don't know if I have the brain power to pull all that off. I'm just happy to write a number of songs that move people and put them in a collection.
I highly recommend it. And you said it's coming out in April?
April 7th, but you can pre-order it now at thebandwagonusa.com for the physical CD. That's thebandwagonusa.com. And then if you want the download, you can go to my Bandcamp page, which is mattdorsey1.bandcamp.com.
Matt Dorsey 1.
Yeah. Or you just go to my website and you'll find links to all those. mattdorseyofficial.com.
Okay.
There is another Matt Dorsey musician out there. I don't know how complicated things are going to get for us, but Matt Dorsey Official, not mattdorsey.com, mattdorseyofficial.com.
Gotcha. Don't worry. I will put the link in the description so people won't get it confused. Are you on social media?
Well, yeah, I've been on Facebook for a decade or so. but it's been primarily Facebook. I've always started since this album surfaced as a thing to do Twitter and Instagram and that kind of stuff. I'm very new to it. I'm a newbie.
So you're an old fart like me, and we're still on Facebook. All that Twitter and Instagram and all that is just because of what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Not to dismiss it, because I know it's important to utilize those platforms. TikTok as well. Haven't looked into that yet. But that's the world we live in, right?
It is. We got to keep up with the times, man.
We do. Or they just roll over us.
I know that's right. But Matt, thank you so much for your time, brother. I appreciate you doing this.
I appreciate you asking me, man. Anytime. Seriously.
Well, when your next album comes out, you got to hit me up so we can get you on to talk about it.
We will do that for sure. And hopefully between now and then, we'll have a Whataburger in Austin, Texas.
That would be awesome. All you got to do is say Whataburger. I'm there, man.
Right on, man.
And I want to thank all you folks out there. If you happen by and this is your first time, I hope you will come back. Please hit that subscribe button. For the regulars, you guys make it possible for me to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.